Hi, I'm Marilyn Blizzard.
And I'm Nadia Jones, and welcome to our show. Over the next 30 minutes, we hope to bring you the latest from the world of entertainment.
Also, guests from the world of entertainment. Today's guest is stuntman Bob Miner.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
You know, I was going over the names in his bio, and I found them to be quite impressive. We look forward to speaking with him. But first, here's some of the latest from the music world. Looks like Nelly has done it again with his hit album, Nellyville, which is very high on the charts and doing quite well.
You know, I was listening to his CD, and I noticed Nelly seems to be doing a lot more singing than rapping. And I must say, he sounded pretty good.
You know what, Marilyn? He's not the only one. Ja Rule has been doing a lot more crooning, not only on his album, but also on others, such as the likes of Jennifer Lopez, Ashanti, of course, and Mary J. Blige, with quite success.
Yeah, did you notice that the latest BET Awards he performed 3 times? First his song, then he performed with Ashanti, then he bought the house down with Mary J. Blige and their big hit, Rainy Days.
Well, if it's a trend, we hope they keep up the good work, and we wish them continued success. Now, moving on to the world of the silver screen, 2 of the hottest actresses out there, Sanaa Lathan and Gabrielle Union. Not only are they super busy, but they also seem to be getting all of the choice roles.
They seem to be getting to work with quite a few of today's hottest leading men. Mrs. Lathan has worked with the likes of Wesley Snipes, Taye Diggs, and now I hear that she is now working with Denzel Washington.
Oh my God, oh my goodness. And as for Miss Union, she too has been working with some hot leading hunks. Morris Chestnut and again Taye Diggs. And right now she's working on the sequel to Bad Boys 1, and her leading man is none other than, yes ladies, Mr. Will Smith. And also, speaking of Mr. Smith, he and Martin Lawrence have gotten back together to bring us the sequel to Bad Boys 1, along with producer Jerry Bruckheimer and director Michael Bay. Now, it's been 5 years since their first collaboration, and if it's as exciting, funny, and action-packed as the first, we hope we don't have to wait another 5 years for them to get back together, huh?
That's very true. You know, since the last time they were together, both Martin Lawrence and Will Smith have been busy and quite successful, as in Martin's work on Big Mama's House and Blue Streak, as well as Mr. Smith's case, Independence Day, Ali, in which he was nominated for an Academy Award, and the 2 highly successful Men in Black movies.
Well, speaking of action movies, that brings us to our guest today. From the world of stunt work, today's guest has been doing stunt work for over a quarter of a century. In television and films, we would love to welcome our guest today, stuntman Bob Miner.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm so fine. I'm glad to be here. And thanks for inviting me.
Now, before we begin, I must say I was going over your bio, and I'm impressed. I mean, wow. What can I say?
Can you tell our audience how many TV and shows that you've appeared in?
Well,
Movie shows?
I'll say as an actor, maybe about 100, but as an actor and stuntman together, total over 300 films.
It's quite a bit.
Jim Brown, Sidney Poitier, Bernie Casey, Fred Williamson. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You've doubled for so many actors in Hollywood. Have you ever taken time to step back and take account of how many actors you've doubled for?
No, not really. I think after about the 5th year, I just kind of gave up after that. It's been so many.
After having done so many stunts over the years, do you remember your first stunt job?
Yes, I do. That was Beyond the Valley of the Dolls in December of 1969.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Yeah.
I noticed that early in your career that you did stunts with Jim Brown and Fred Williamson. Now, these 2 are ex-football players. Seems to me they should have been able to handle their own action scenes.
Well,
Why would anyone need to do their stunts for them, being that they are athletes?
well, the fact that Jim Brown and Fred Williams, they're athletes, but they aren't stuntmen, so that's the difference. I mean, if I do a stunt and something so happened to happen to me, such if I get hurt, we'll say, they said, bring in the next stuntman. But if an actor gets hurt, they have to, you know, shut down the film, they have to go to the hospital. That's a lot of production money that's lost. So we're important, but then again, we could be replaced by the next guy.
Can you tell us, how did you get into stunt work?
Let's see. I wanted to be a police officer, but I found out stunts was much safer. But let's see. I was a bodybuilder. I was a very athletic person. A record. Let's see. High hurdle holder in the a record holder in the 120-yard high hurdles. Then I had a scholarship there. That went to LA Trade Tech Junior College. I ran track there. Then from there, I had a matter of fact, I had a scholarship to Pepperdine.
Oh.
Really?
Yes.
I go there. I go there.
I did. Yeah. So I left Pepperdine. After I left Pepperdine, I went to let's see. I met this stunt man. His name was Paul Stater, and he wanted me to talk about stunts. And since I was such an athlete, he said, you know, you'd be great if you were a stunt man. And at that time, there wasn't very many Afro-American stuntmen. I wasn't the first, but there were very few at the time. So therefore, I said, if I practice and work hard at this, I might become very successful. That was something I really wanted to do because I love the movies. And so I started training. I went to a gym in Santa Monica. I started training. We were boxing, fencing. I was jumping off buildings. I started off on a step ladder. Then I went up to billboards, then telephone poles and buildings, and I was jumping off 1- and 2-story buildings. So I got my extensive training at
Crazy.
I got my extensive training in Santa Monica. So therefore, believe it or not, I had my first picture within 5.5 months from the time I stepped into the gym. So my story is a success story. It's not one of those stories that you had a rough time, but
Oh, that's nice.
I was in the right place at the right time and made good at what I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
I noticed that early in your career, you did quite a bit of work with Fred Williamson, so it must have been a good working relationship. Tell us how that came about.
Well, let's see. When I met Fred Williamson, I had a horse, and I kept him out in Burbank at a stables. So I was horseback riding out there one day, and Fred Williamson happened to show up that day with a gentleman that was his stuntman. And I was riding my horse looking beautiful and pretty, you know.
Okay.
I don't know, so anyway, and his stuntman was riding, but he wasn't looking very good. I mean, he was a good stuntman, but he wasn't used to horses, you know, so I think Fred kind of took a notice of that. And he didn't like what he saw in terms of, because Fred has an ego or a complex or whatever you want to call it. He wants to look good.
Okay.
So,
Like
Don't
most
we
people.
all?
yeah. And so he liked the way I was riding. He stopped me and he said, you know, are you interested in being my stuntman? I said, well, what are you doing? He said, I'm doing a movie called Nigger Charlie, and I'm very interested in you being my stunt double. I said, yeah, but that gentleman over there, I know him, and I don't want to look like I'm trying to take his job, you know. And he said, well, I'll take care of that. He said, but I said, I would love to, but, you know, you got to talk to my friend, you know. So he proceeded to talk to him, and he told him about me because he liked the way I was riding the horse. And a little later on, I talked to him, and I said, well, it's okay, you know, I don't want to take your job. I don't want to look like. He said, no, that's okay, Bob, you know, everything's going to be all fine. So from that day on, I was Fred's stunt double, and I went to double him on the show Nigger Charlie, and we did a lot of horseback riding. Had to rescue Denise Nichols by horseback, you know.
Oh.
So I did a lot of fancy stuff, and from that day on, I was Fred's stuntman. Yeah.
Cool story.
Interesting.
Stealing people's jobs.
I know it seems like that.
No, I'm just kidding. Most people don't know that you're a vanguard of a sort. You are the first black man to be admitted to the Stuntman's Association of Motion Pictures. You broke color barriers. Tell us about that.
Well, let's see. I had to have a sponsor, but I'm not able to solicit a sponsor. So one have to come to me and said, Bob, are you interested in becoming a member of the Stuntmen's Association?
Okay.
And at that time, the Stuntmen's Association consisted of about 140 white men, Caucasians. And I said, I would love to. And he said, well, I just want to know because I would like to sponsor you. I said, well, that'll be great. And I thought that was a very good idea. I thought that was beyond my reach, you know, because there's no black man in that organization. So he had to solicit 5 letters from members that were already members of the Stuntmen's Association. And by him soliciting 5 letters, that means they had to write letters and tell about what they think of me as a person on the set and off the set, and why they think I would become a good stuntman.
Okay.
And things that I can do. So they proceed to do that, and he got the 5 letters, presented them to the board. the board consists of 16 members that's already in the association. And when they present them to the board, they read the letters, so I got passed by the board. After I got passed by the board,
Wait, there's more?
yes, there's more. I
Okay.
know. After I got past the board, then they presented me to the membership. Then I have to go before the membership. They read my letters to the membership, which consists of 140 more members.
It's incredible.
Then after I get past the membership, if I get past, which they accepted my letter, and I had to stand up and tell why I wanted to become a member of the Stuntmen's Association, then they would vote. They would send me in a little room. Then they have a discussion. Then they call me back in. And after they vote, I passed the vote. I wasn't still a member yet. Then I had to go on a year's probation.
Oh.
That was part of
Wow.
the procedure, yes.
Oh, I would have given up by then.
Yes, and so I had to go on a year's probation. So by going on a year's probation, they had to see how I was on the set, off the set, my personality, how I handle myself on jobs, how I do certain jobs. So anyway, after about a year of that, I passed it successfully, evidently. And next thing I knew, they voted me in. So I was officially a member of the Stuntmen's Association.
All right.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You deserve
So
it.
that was quite honorary. It was, matter of fact, they broadcast it on radio on KGFJ
Wow.
That's
for about
amazing.
about 4 or 5 times a day.
Oh,
Bob Miner, the member of the Stuntmen's Association, the first black Afro-American in the union.
Wow.
So I
That's
was quite
incredible.
That's
happy.
quite
I was
an
quite thrilled.
achievement.
Yeah.
Quite an achievement.
Great.
Since then, it's been it's about 6 other black guys in the association. There are other independent stuntmen, but I was among this organization of which was the first original group of stuntmen that started out.
it's
So
interesting.
I've been a member now. Matter of fact, believe it or not, about 5 years later, I became first vice president of the Stuntmen's Association.
Amazing.
So that was quite an intriguing challenge.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Car stunts, fight scenes, being set on fire.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular stunt that you desire?
No, not really. I mean, I've done so many. I mean, I love coordinating. I love directing second unit whenever I can get it. But I've been set on fire. You name it, I've probably done it, I'm sure. And but there's not one particular thing. I do like fighting, though. I like to beat up people. So I do love that. But I love coordinating and
Yeah.
second unit directing whenever I can get it.
Have there ever been a job that before you performed, your knees were shaking and you were thinking, what type of fool am I?
Yes, I've had that type of job. The job that comes to mind is a movie called Let's Do It Again, starring Sidney Poitier. And they wanted me to jump from a 13-story building
Oh,
Oh
across to
my
the next
God.
building, which was 18.5 feet wide.
oh my God.
So prior to that, I was on a movie in Florida. I came back, understand they were looking for somebody that double Sidney Poitier that can do this jump. But they wouldn't be satisfied with just a guy saying, I can do it. They wanted to see stuntmen at the park in a long jump pit and doing the jump to see could you jump. See, the jump itself, the building, from building to building was about 18.5 feet. And so they wanted to get an idea what you do on the ground first. And by me just coming off a picture, and everybody was at the park, I said, well, I'm going to try out for this because I was a pretty good athlete. I was a record, a record holder in the high hurdles. And so guys were doing their jump, and I proceeded to do my jump as a tryout. And I jumped on the ground, and I had the best jump of that. I only did one jump, but I think it was about 20 feet, almost 20 feet.
Wow.
Gee.
I pulled a hamstring muscle,
Oh gosh.
and so I was pretty sore. So I couldn't do any more jumps. So the rest of the guys jumped too, but didn't nobody even have a jump as far as me.
Oh.
So I proceed to, they like me, so they asked me, did I want the job? And I said, well, yeah, I want the job, of course, you know. And they asked me, how much would I charge? And I said, well, to do that day's work, to jump and maybe coming down a little rope or something, I said, well, $4,000.
Wow.
They said, $4,000? And they said, no, that's too much money. We can't pay you.
Oh my goodness.
I said, you can't pay me $4,000. I said, you know, I'm putting my life on the line.
Exactly.
And they said they thought it was too much money. I said, well, I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry, I can't do it. They said, well, I'm sorry, we can't pay you that. We'll just have to get somebody else. I said, well, okay. I didn't mind anyway. I said to myself, what have I got myself into? So they proceed to audition few more stuntmen within the next 2 weeks. And evidently they couldn't find anybody that jumped that far.
Yeah, because 20 feet, for those you don't know, that's almost the length of a school bus.
Yeah, is it?
Oh my God.
Yes, it is.
And so they came back to me about 2 weeks later and said, okay, we'll give you the $4,000. I said, now it's going to cost you $8,000.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
That's what happened when you held
I said,
out.
it's going to cost you $8,000. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
They were shocked. But I was serious as a heart attack.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so they had no choice. And so they said, okay,
And they paid
they'll
you.
pay me the $8,000.
Wow, that's a
Oh my goodness, what have I got myself into? And you talking about knees shaking. That was my knees was shaking. I said,
type of
oh
fool am
no.
I?
So I said, but I had a pulled hamstring from practicing. And I said, man, I've committed myself to this. So at night I couldn't sleep for nights.
Oh gosh.
And I got in front of my yard, got my tape, I measured on the sidewalk how much was 18.5 feet. And I practiced jumping on the ground, seeing was I able to do that. And by me having a bad hamstring, I taped up my leg and everything. And the time was getting near. So I said, oh no, another week to go and I gotta do this jump, you know?
Yeah.
And I wasn't 100% in the legs.
Yes.
And I practiced. You know, you have to get your step, because in school you get your step, and if you don't hit your mark on your step, they call that, well, a pretty good while ago they called it your crow hop or something like that. Then you can go through the pit and you can come back and re-step, you know, and do your measurement and do it over again.
Okay.
So when you're on the ground, if you mess up, you can run through the pit. But when you're on a 13-story building, you
Okay.
make it run one time. You don't be stopping, you know.
Yeah.
It's like a little road runner in the air. I'm not like that. I can't stop in the air. It's like, then back up and go
That's
again.
right.
So anyway, so I proceed to, when that night came, I had my steps measured off what I thought I was going to do it at. I think it was 34 feet. So I built a wooden ramp on the building, 34 feet long. And on the ramp, I put a thin piece of rubber. And then I had a special type shoe that I built, something like a tennis shoe to give me traction. So I measured the 30-foot length off. I put a white piece of tape at the end of the 1-foot line on the end of the building. That kind of glows in the dark, kind of so I can see it.
Yeah,
Because
smart.
by the time they got to the jump itself, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And therefore, it was about 200 people that came out that night to see me do this jump. And so I was nervous, but I had confidence that I could do it. So I
That's
was
what
nervous.
it's all about.
It
So,
is.
but I had the confidence, otherwise I would be no fool and say I could do it. Anyway, so by the time they got to the shot, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And dew had set in.
Oh,
So
no.
dew had set in
it's
on the
gonna
top of the little
slippery. Yeah.
rubber, and it got wet.
Oh my
I
gosh.
said, oh no.
Oh no.
So I had the people to get a rag and make sure they wipe it down so it wasn't slippery and wet. Okay, they asked me, was I ready? I said, yes, I'm ready. So I'm standing up there, 13 stories, looking across to the next building, 18.5 feet wide to the other side. And Sidney Poitier was so happened to be directing that film.
Oh.
And I told Sidney, whenever you holler action, I might not go immediately when you say action. Just keep the cameras rolling. I said, but give me a few seconds to recollect myself and my body. And so they said, everybody. Right on the set, roll cameras, you know. He said, action. And I'm still standing there. I'm still standing there. The cameras are rolling. I'm still standing there. So I said, oh, I said my little prayer. I said, God, please. I said, I'm a rookie. I need this jump, but I know I could make it. I said, when you tell me it's okay, I'm going to go. And all of a sudden, I heard this little voice tell me, everything's going to be okay, Bob. He said, just take your time, relax. And then I heard a voice that came to me and said, go. I took off. I saw this white piece of tape on the end. Now, keeping in mind, I'm 13 stories up. And I'm hoping like heck that I get my right footing on that mark. And I'm running very tape. And I'm running, and I hit the back of my foot actually in back of the tape, but I saw my toe approach the tape. And I threw my hands and my head as far as I could in the air. And as I was sailing across, I was throwing my body, my arms moving. I was bicycling in the air.
Wow.
And I was sailing through the air, and I saw the other side, and I hit. I was so glad that I hit that roof. It felt so good.
Oh,
the crowd went crazy. I mean, everybody yelled, and you know, they applaud. And I had to take my curtain. It was really nothing.
That is so wonderful.
So it worked out good, and I felt good. And
oh, that's wonderful.
that was when you said knees jiggling and shaking and things like that. I will never forget that. And that was my big one.
That's
and
incredible.
it was in the LA Times the next day, in the front page of the Section 2 or something like that.
You have the coolest stories.
Yeah, so
You
that,
really
that was a
do.
great story. I'll never forget that because, you know, Mrs. Sidney Poitier came up to me and hugged me, you know, and everything. And,
Oh, wow.
and on that same show, I proceeded to do other stunts for him, you know, coming down a rope with Bill Cosby stunt double and, you know, things like that.
Seems like you've been doing a lot of flying. This brings me to my next question. I ran into an actor friend of mine, I won't say who, and I told him that I was going to be interviewing you, and he referred to you as the Minor Bird. Now, and he said a lot of stuntmen in the industry call you that. So tell us how you got that nickname.
Well, I guess I developed the Minor Bird. One of the things that I was a high hurdle champion in high school.
Okay.
I went to City, and then I went to college. I broke the school record, and they said I fly like a bird. And then once I did that movie, Let's Do It Again, for Sidney Poitier, they actually thought I flew like a bird. I sailed across with the ease of grace.
Wow.
And it just felt good, and they've been calling me Minor Bird ever since. So if you ask somebody in the industry now, the Minor Bird, minor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they just call me Minor Bird. So
Why don't we see a lot of people of color doing action second unit directing?
well, that's a long story, but the way I can probably do it. Action second unit directing, of course, that's directing action scenes with black actors or white actors. It doesn't matter what color, but you're doing action scenes directing. So one of the reasons why I myself, GA, I do have my director's skill, Magnum PI, and that's where I got my director's card. So I directed some small car chases and, you know, some sunsets and things. But there aren't very many Afro-Americans. Have went through that have gone, I've seen him pass me. But this
I want to ask you